Welcome everybody to the Houston Tech Rodeo. This session is the future of innovation and technology, specifically in commercial real estate. And I have some of the top technologists in the world with us, and they're right here in Houston. So here's what we're gonna go over. I'm gonna introduce you to all of these great minds. We're gonna go over the current state of the commercial real estate market, how COVID has influenced everything, the future of commercial real estate, and these great tech innovators are going to tell you how they're changing the world. And if we have time, we'll leave it open to a little Q&A. So let's meet at each and every one of these great minds. First of all, we have Rita from GotSpot. So if you would tell us a little bit about your company, Rita.
Sure thing. So hi, everybody. Rita Hicks with GotSpot. GotSpot is a marketplace where businesses that have space can make it available for day rental to businesses that need space. So think Airbnb, but for powering your business.
Nice. Next, we have Sebastian. Tell us what you do.
Hi, so I'm the founder and CEO of Lodger. Lodger helps apartment buildings boost their and diversify their cash flow by converting and managing some of their vacant units to attract renters looking for convenient and flexible furnished lodging. So it's great for people who hate moving and assembling furniture, as well as for digital nomads looking for the service and consistency of a hotel.
Phenomenal. Mr. Bryant, ask DOS.
Hey guys, Bobby Bryant here. DOS is a digital real estate marketplace that wants to make search and transacting real estate more intuitive. And so our objective is to radically evolve the way people search and transact real estate throughout the country and eventually around the world.
Whew. Now we're cooking with grease. Mr. Alex with the Cannon.
Alex Gross here. So we're the Cannon. We're an innovation community that kind of operates co-working spaces and takes it to that next level by adding some of those elements. Like any other innovation community, it's a dynamic style of work. And so we're trying to take everything we do in our physical communities and now put it on a digital platform called Cannon Connect.
Excellent, excellent. Natalie, Incentifine.
Hey everybody, Natalie Goodman with Incentifine. We are the nation's only database for real estate incentives. Most people don't even realize there's billions of dollars available to any type of construction or real estate project. So think of us as a clearinghouse for billions of dollars each year, and we can match it to any property in the United States using a 2-minute survey.
Phenomenal. That's what we want to do. Find the money. It's what it's all about. Mr. Mark Hamzat.
Yes, sir. So the 40-acre plan is, everyone knows what 40 acres and a mule is. Well, for the future of technology, to show how individuals can get their 40 acres through commercial real estate markets.
Phenomenal. And for those of you that don't know me, my name is Alan Thornton. I am the founder and CEO of Money for Your Mission, Inc., where we help you find money for your mission. So let's talk about the current state. What's going on right now? And, I love to start with the money. So Natalie, if you could tell us, in this current market, how do incentives play, and what role do they play in commercial real estate right now?
Yeah, today, absolutely. There's 3 things we're seeing at Incentifine in 2021. And it's all going to play towards where the future of real estate's going. So hint, hint. What we're seeing is, first and foremost, COVID prevention. I can't tell you how many hospitals, schools, offices, you name the asset type, if it houses people at the end of the day, they're thinking about their HVAC systems, how to upgrade them for COVID prevention. We're here to provide cost savings for upgrading those HVAC systems to more energy efficient equipment. So that's kind of the first thing. Second thing we're seeing is that now that, we have rejoined as a nation the Paris Climate Agreement or Accord, you see a spike in corporations and companies now dedicating their real estate to what's called net zero by 2050. They're just going to green their assets more in an effort for climate mitigation, right? And that's sort of the last thing we're seeing in real estate is folks are realizing how much waste comes from buildings, the buildings we spend 90% of our time in. So they're saying, hold on a second, we're the ones affecting climate change. Absolutely. Is there something we can do about it? Yeah, you can make your building more energy efficient, water conserving. You can think about renewables, and surprise, the government will actually pay you to implement those pieces of equipment. So yeah.
Wow. I mean, you start with the money and things are being implemented and they'll pay you for it. So there's a lot of, in commercial real estate, it's like in flux. So Logan, talk to us, what's the future? We've seen a lot of co-working spaces pop up, but now, you see all the articles, you see a lot of analysts say, hey, co-working is dead. What's the current state? Is it going to survive, or is it going to be like the foundation for the next thing?
Yeah, I'll take that question for Logan. So the co-working is like I mentioned at the beginning, is something that's always evolving. I mean, something that used to be called co-locating is now called co-working. And even within co-working models, you have various different types and fashions of how people approach co-working. I think you might even have models that you can't truly call co-working anymore because of all the elements that they provide kind of the people that are engaging in their environment. So I think maybe starting with the WeWork documentary might be one opportunity to kind of see what co-working might have started as, and where the pitfalls are and where we can go from there. So truthfully, if I had the crystal ball, I'd be a lot richer than I am. So right now we're kind of gauging what the community is asking from us and what are people asking from their commercial real estate, and trying to adapt.
Actually, yeah, I've been watching too much X-Men. I said Logan there. I got you, Alex. So thank you for that. So Bobby, talking more about real estate in its current state, even in the residential market, which bubbles up to commercial ultimately, is there a way that we can search for real estate more effectively? Can that be improved?
Yeah, it definitely can be improved. I think that the interesting thing is that we're dealing with a different consumer. When you look at the largest pool of buyers right now in residential real estate, is millennials. And you know what? Millennials are different. They've changed a lot of industries prior to the real estate industry. You're talking about the largest, most educated, and most diverse generation in history. And so when it comes down to searching real estate, I want more information than just pictures or square footage, a lot size, and the school that it's zoned to. I now can live anywhere. And so with that being said, I want to know more about the area. Can you tell me about the subdivision? Can you tell me about, do people like yoga in this area? I like, I like jazz. And so people really now want to know what's happening around more what they call geo location, if you will, social, if you will, and to be able to understand what's happening around an area and then find a place to live within it. And so I think that's what we're seeing now, because we're in this, post pandemic, and we could live and be anywhere. So let's be where I love the things I love and like doing.
And with the things you love, and you talk about millennials, right? We work a little differently.
Yeah.
And so this question's for Rita, and thank you for that, Bobby. So the way that people work are different. How has the emergence of like the freelance market, the gig economy, and how is that changing the way businesses think and build their commercial real estate environment?
I would say dramatically. So if you think about before the pandemic, there were already over 60 million freelancers across the country. And that's a broad catch-all term, but it means anybody who has a business that is not tied to a place. So it's bakers and yoga instructors, it's marketing professionals, it's lawyers that don't keep an office anymore, 60 million nationwide. And if the pandemic has taught us anything, is that a whole lot more people than just those 60 million are perfectly capable of doing a really fantastic job empowering the economy without being tied to a specific space. So I don't see a future where there's no role for space. I think there's always going to be a real estate footprint there, that for convening, for meeting customers. There are some things that you just can't do without a place attached to it. But I think that commercial real estate holders are going to have to start thinking much more creatively about the kinds of traffic they're willing to bring into their space. so that they can invite in some of those activities from people who maybe only want space, you know, a dozen times a month for specific purposes, and the rest of the time they're perfectly happy in a coffee shop or at home. What does it look like to be part of that evolving economy so that we get rid of this narrative we have that Main Street and Amazon are at odds? They don't have to be. We just all have to get a little bit more creative. And I think the pandemic has shown us that, like, it's a pivot point for everybody right now.
And it's not only a pivot point in the physical space, but it's also a pivot point when we talk about demographics. So this question's for Mark. When we talk about the current state and the demographics and some of the intentional communities and the education behind that, how are things evolving for minorities in this environment?
That's a great question, Alan. And, you know, essentially with DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, everybody knows what's going on, you know, with George Floyd, et cetera, et cetera. And so people are now beginning to see, you know, there are cameras everywhere. People are now beginning to see that there is a disparity. There was redlining. You know, you have kind of corporations coming in and taking over historically Black neighborhoods that are generally close to the city. And people are getting, you know, like Bobby said, people are definitely getting educated, educating themselves, and there's more inclusion. And so that just, you know, that just means, you know, more opportunity for individuals of color to be able to invest in and own either residential or commercial real estate.
Phenomenal. And I put these two gentlemen together because everything sounds better in a British accent. So this next question, Sebastian, talking about challenges, not only within and the current state of physical spaces, we talked about how demographics are changing, but what are some of the other challenges and opportunities in commercial real estate currently?
Yeah, so the pandemic really accelerated changes that are already happening in the background in how we live, work, and travel. So for example, people are switching from booking hotels to alternative accommodation, such as Airbnb, and that really accelerated with the pandemic as people wanted to avoid lots of people. Obviously, people are spending less time in the office or never going back. And so that means we're sort of no longer tied to a single location. And many also wanted to escape apartment communities and, you know, have a backyard. And also, I think it really gave people, people didn't want to be tied down as much. And so what that means, so I work particularly with multifamily apartment communities. A lot of them have been built over the last few years, and some have been struggling to rent out their own apartments. In the travel space, hotels are also struggling. And so I think they need to adapt to this sort of rapid change. Nobody expected things to move so quickly. And so, you know, out of the existential threat comes opportunity, I think.
Mm-hmm. And talking about taking those obstacles and turning them into opportunity, COVID, right? You never let a good pandemic go to waste. It's a tragedy what happened, you know, in our world, but at the same time, we still have to move forward. So this question's for Rita, in segueing into the COVID conversation. How has COVID like really changed? We talked about apartment complexes, but how has COVID really changed the way business think about commercial real estate?
I think that the pandemic has changed the way that commercial real estate holders think in a couple of ways. One of them is that for a very long time, that's an industry that has been based on a 10-year lease sweet spot. And there are few people who are willing to take on that kind of a relationship to the built environment right now, because that's a decade and nobody knows what's going to happen tomorrow. So the holders of commercial real estate are now having to think through what other kinds of tenants they want to bring in. And then on the user side, they're trying to figure out for what activities do I really need space? I don't actually, turns out, need every one of my employees to be sitting at a desk all day, every day. I need an opportunity to meet with them at a regular interval or workspace when they need it, but maybe that looks like something other than this 10-year lease I have been traditionally doing for the past however many decades. And then I think the other piece of it too is that we're seeing a lot of brands pop up in the pandemic, ghost kitchens, people who are selling all kinds of different maker goods, and people who have come up with new consulting models. All those people over the next 2 quarters, they're going to start meeting people face to face, but they're not going to be meeting people face to face at the interval that's going to lend itself to even a year lease, let alone a 10-year lease. So the question then becomes like, helping people who are looking for space get their arms around what they need, but then also helping people who have space get their arms around or rather get more comfortable with new ways of doing things, new kinds of activities, new kinds of leases, and leveraging technology to make all of it a little bit easier for the administrative staff that's going to have to make all those buildings sing.
Exactly. And so businesses are transforming, and we'll talk about not only larger businesses, smaller businesses, but hold on, we're talking about COVID, right? So, and let's tie this to money. Natalie, like, how are incentives addressing things like COVID, right? Like people still have health concerns.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll kind of tag on to what Rita was talking about. COVID has shaken up, we see all asset types come through Incentify, and I should preface with that. Thousands of properties, tens of thousands of properties streaming through our database. Everything from multifamily, I can tell you now they're rethinking how are they going to mix in and address everything from affordable housing to maybe they're not going to be doing a lot of these mega, hundreds of units kind of multifamilies. It's going to be how do they address housing at a more intimate level. Let's talk office space. It completely shook up office space. And guess what? Developers used to build to core and shell. Not anymore. You're not going to have the same anchor tenants you used to have. You're going to have migrating tenants, which is what Rita was talking about. So now developers are realizing they're not just on the hook to make a core and shell deal pencil. They've got to build that space out. They've got to create flexibility, right? And for the office spaces that know that they're going to retain their space, because let's be honest, there are some businesses that still have to do things face to face. Suddenly it's, wait a second, air quality matters. Absolutely. It's always mattered. We just haven't addressed it in the way that COVID is driving us to address it. So building standards are being far exceeded in the air quality realm and the energy efficiency realm. And employees are asking their employers, am I safe returning to the office? Tell me about what the plan of action is. Tell me about how the building's going to address this. And so those are a lot of the things we're at least seeing at Incentify.
Absolutely. And one thing you said, Natalie, and people are having to adapt. And this question is for Alex. If people are having to adapt, not only businesses, what Rita said, also, there's a lot, not only in Houston, but across the country, there's all these innovation ecosystems, right? How are they going to bounce back and evolve from this huge COVID interruption?
Yeah, so as part of the innovation ecosystem, you need space, right? We kind of touched on co-working space in the last question. I think Rita did an excellent job talking about it from a real estate perspective, and Natalie from a financial and money perspective. So I'll try to tackle this from like a behavioral science perspective, which is, ultimately, while yes, a lot of the tasks that people will do, especially if there's kind of systemic, more tactical operative tasks, they don't require you to be engaging face to face. But I think as human beings, we'll be drawn to operating and cooperating with other people in environments that are conducive to collaboration and creativity. So I think we'll probably start seeing innovation ecosystems transition a lot of their more operational pieces to an online platform, because that's not going away. The COVID accelerated and it's here. But then when you're talking about more elements of trying to have collision and creativity and really kind of foster some new age thinking, I think you'll have to have more human interaction, and you'll have to have more human engagement. And even if you don't have to, I think we'll naturally do that. I mean, we clearly didn't learn our lesson from the Spanish flu. There's people, was holding their signs saying wear a mask. It took us a while to get to that point. I think we'll get back to that point where just naturally we'll want to engage with human beings again. So I think I'm looking forward to kind of having that true mix, and I think it'll take a while before we find a way to make it really efficient.
Excellent. And so one of the things that you said, and regardless of what side of, and we've had a change of power during COVID, right? So regardless of what side of the political spectrum that you're on, there has been some change, and the word you use, systemic, has been used in a couple different fashions. So regardless of what side you are on, Mark, if you could tell us how COVID has created opportunities for minorities during this time.
Mute.
COVID has definitely created opportunities for minorities during this period. If you're active on Instagram, there are several influencers who have, because everyone's sitting at home, who are showing you what is capable, and on LinkedIn as well, what is capable in real estate, in commercial real estate, and they're giving away or sometimes selling great information and educating people, like Bobby said earlier, on how to get into the real estate game like never before. And so it's the use of technology and the fact that people are kind of at home, bored, wanting to be able to, as Alex said, communicate and meet with like-minded people, and just fed up of Netflix, et cetera, and just wanting to do more for themselves and for their families.
We talk about tech entrepreneurs, and I appreciate that, Mark, and creating opportunity. And we have, the good thing is Houston is one of the most diverse city in the nation, especially in tech. So Mr. Bryant, talk to us about being a minority tech founder. Why hasn't this industry of commercial real estate been disrupted at all? Right, and specifically in this space?
Real estate is a very dynamic industry that comes with a lot of moving pieces. I think when we look at some of the unicorn companies, or we look at some of the people, it's been more that have failed. And I really believe that to really tackle this industry, you have to have an insider perspective. I think a lot of people that have tried to disrupt, which I think that's an overhyped word. But I think when it comes to real estate, you have these, people, from the Bay Area to the East Coast, and they live in these bubbles, and you're trying to evolve something for the masses, the majority of the country. And you have to be a very integral player in understanding the dynamics of the real estate industry. It is, state by state, there are different rules. The rules and regulations you have to understand. And if you just have an idea, I'll tell you what, right now, for anybody who think they're in their garage and going to innovate and disrupt this business, that your idea, if you haven't taken the rules and regulations into consideration, you failed from the jump. And so we have to understand the rules that govern this game, and then try to ideate and innovate from within the rules. And I think that has been the problem for most of the predecessors who have attempted and raised, serious, hundreds of millions of dollars and still failed, right? And so I I think what has to happen is that there has to be this Venn diagram of tech and real estate within an organization that understands the pitfalls, that understands the rules and regs, and that has a beautiful idea of innovation and being able to tie all that in together. And the reality of it is, even if that is perfect, you still have to be blessed by this thing called timing, because that overrides it all. And I think right now with the pandemic and what it has done, it has taught us to prepare for the worst. You have to develop for the worst. And if you do that, whatever the future of this new normal that we're all in the pursuit of understanding, that nobody knows what it looks like, right? That if you could turn around and understand in a sickening way what people want, not what you want, not what you believe, but really what people want, then I think the real estate industry at that moment can be evolved into something beautiful, and we could move past this prehistoric 1908 version of what we're experiencing in 2021.
Can I just
go ahead? Go ahead,
and Sebastian. So
I was going to say, if I could build on Bobby's point, it's a brilliant segue to.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, Sebastian, and going through this, we talked about opportunity, and during this time, I mean, during COVID, we're able to travel to Disneyland, travel to Six Flags, and nobody was there, right? So tell us how the pandemic has impacted the way that we work, the way that we live, and the way that we travel.
Yeah, so I was, saying earlier on how people are avoiding hotels, that when you don't need to go to a specific office every day, but you could work anywhere, then maybe you can live anywhere. And so Americans traditionally haven't had the opportunity to travel much because they don't get much time off. But suddenly, if you can work from anywhere, then you can go and have a long weekend somewhere. You can move to a city for a month and try it out. You can live anywhere. So we've seen a rise of these sort of, I guess, digital nomads, for want of a better word. You can sort of live anywhere. And to build on Bobby's point earlier, I think it's important to understand the dynamics of the real estate industry. But I think what gets forgotten too often is the users of the real estate. And so let's take an apartment. You don't rent an apartment because you want an interior design project, right? So when you rent an apartment, the product is unusable because you have to move in furniture, which either you already own, or you have to go buy it and assemble it. You have to connect utilities. You have to set up a Wi-Fi router. And that seemed crazy to me because, as you can hear from my accent, I'm not from Texas. I moved over here from London, and back in London, and back in London, 4 out of 5 properties are rented fully furnished already, which kind of makes sense, right? Because if you're renting, you don't own your own place, so why would you own your sort of furniture? And it's funny because apartment communities here have these amazing amenities more often than not, but they've kind of gone 95% of the way, and yet they only have one product, a 12-month lease on a bare apartment. And when I speak to leasing agents, all across Houston and further afield, they tell me, yeah, we get calls every day for furnished accommodation on, shorter terms of, a few weeks, a few months. And yeah, we have to turn them away. And that to me is the insane thing, that this industry has been doing something for so long, and they've forgotten about why people rent an apartment. And that's, we're there to help them sort of solve that problem and to give people what they want, which is, a place to sleep.
That's it.
There you go. Not only do we want
to work from home, a place to sleep, work from home, and watch Netflix.
Yes. So we can do all in one spot now. So, and the good thing is, for all of these tech innovators, we're making it easier for the future. So we've talked enough about the past. The pandemic happened. People are almost vaccinated, right? So regardless of your thoughts on that, let's talk about the future. Rita, if you could shed a light on what role, as we rebuild, as people come back from the pandemic, what role can commercial real estate play in building local economic resiliency?
Well, I think one role that commercial real estate can play is by being innovative and by being a good partner to what's going on in the community, right? I mean, I think some of the good things that we've seen come out of the pandemic is lots of hyper-local players getting really scrappy and creative and figuring out new and interesting ways to take care of their communities in the for-profit space and in the nonprofit space. And I think we're going to see more of that. I think we're going to see people use that as a springboard into a lot of really interesting products and services that are going to stick with us. I mean, the ability to fine dine at home because you have DoorDash and a ghost kitchen is going to stick with us. And so there's a real opportunity for the built environment to power a lot of that innovation. The other piece of it, though, is there's a real opportunity for commercial real estate to level the playing field, because historically, the people able to start a business are the people who have access to resources. Usually that means money and or relationships. And if you don't have one or both of those things, usually both of those things, you don't have a path to success. But if you are a commercial real estate player willing to let go of that longer term, willing to welcome activities not conventional to the space that you have, then you're creating opportunity for local businesses to try new things and stay local and build where they are and serve their communities in ways that are not only going to be very beneficial to those communities, but they're going to let the best and brightest ideas rise to the top without having to start on third base.
So the future and what I'm hearing is opportunity, right? We had opportunity, we had difficulty, and that's what the future and the history of the last 6,000 years reads. And the next 6,000 years, it'll be the same, opportunity mixed with difficulty. So we want to come back, and the future of commercial real estate is not only opportunity, but also flexibility. So Logan did it again, back in X-Men. Alex, what will be the future, have it playing in the background? What will, another thing, innovation. What will be the future of flexible workspaces for commercial real estate?
First of all, I've never gotten that like I look anything like Hugh Jackman, so I just appreciate that someone finally noticed, you know. You know, I honestly, I think Sebastian did a great job of describing it, but just for the residential world, right? At the end of the day, flexibility, I think, is synonymous with convenience, right? So as long as we're making it convenient for people to find a place to work, that they'll start going there, right? I think one of the things we struggle with is that we're always looking for, okay, what do people want? What are they looking for? How do we adapt our offering and all that kind of stuff? At the end of the day, if you make it, if you remove the barriers of entry, remove the friction towards accessing whatever it is your product or your service is, then you'll get customers, you'll get people engaging in that environment. And so I believe, and I think the Canon tries to model that a little bit, is we try to create an environment that's just set up where you can plop your computer down, you've got your coffee, you've got your internet connection, you've got engagement with other human beings, whether that's in a digital space or a physical space. And then you got everything you need to be able to produce something that's truly revolutionary. And so I think, I mean, I don't want to sound redundant, but I think Sebastian kind of hit the nail on the head.
Absolutely. No, it's all about different perspectives, and I appreciate each and every one of you being on this, because you're leaders and innovators in your respective space. And Mark, if you can talk to us about the opportunity in the future, specifically for minorities within commercial real estate. What's this going to bring for?
Super. So I'm gonna buck the trend a little bit. I'm gonna go to the past. So, like Sebastian, obviously I grew up in the UK, but the American dream, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. In 1865, when the Civil War closed out, the 40 acres and a mule was supposed to be promised to, the African Americans that helped in the Civil War, and to be able to create life, liberty, and a pursuit of happiness for all Americans. And we all know what happened, in the 400 years of slavery previously. And so when people have, somewhere, like Sebastian said, to sleep, rest their head, and generate wealth for their community, everybody flourishes. And so, just kind of the things that we've been seeing in the news where, it's a touchy subject, but just, police officers shooting, African-American males, et cetera, none of that needs to happen, because those systemic, like you said earlier, things that have been built into the system of the country happen because these things from the past were not implemented. And, just as Bobby said earlier, with education and with sharing this, this information, with using the internet, with using the fact that we were all at home and learning from one another, there's just more opportunities. So the future is basically looking to the past and correcting the mistakes that we should have corrected in the past, and actually doing it now. So that's how we will progress into the future.
Thank you for that, Mark. And we appreciate the insight on the opportunity of the past. And I know a lot of people, and this question's for Natalie, talking and looking toward the future. Do you see, talking specifically about the money, do you see incentives increasing or decreasing over time? Because a lot's changed.
A lot has changed. Just to answer your question initially, incentives, expect them to grow substantially. They have to. We've heard from the group, and we've talked about how real estate has to address end users. It does. End users now have different concerns. They have different functionality. They're more transient. They need to be more flexible. But we forgot one critical thing that buildings play a role in, and that's protecting us from the elements. Who here lost power and water during the freeze? Yeah. Expect more extreme weather events. So what commercial real estate needs to think about, look, if they're going to attract and retain those tenants, if they're going to think about an asset that is going to withstand more extreme weather events, and they need to think about resilience, right? They need to build for more extreme weather. They need to think about their end users and how they're going to protect them. And that's where incentives are going to spike. We've addressed energy efficiency. We've addressed water conservation. We could do a little bit more, but we have yet to address things like fireproofing, windproofing, which is also hurricane proofing. We're talking about Houston Tech Rodeo. Hurricane season's about to start, folks. So, we got to think about windproofing, and we need to think about flood mitigation, flash flood, droughts. All of these things affect our buildings. And so if we want to think about the future of commercial real estate, we need to think about weather and how it's going to protect the end users at the end of the day.
So here's one thing we'd want to know, and the audience out there, type in the chat, audience, if you want to know this, even though this is a virtual session. When we talk about incentives, like, are we talking about this big? Are we talking like, how can you give us a number? What are we talking about in incentives?
Oh man, so I think on the news we've heard about this $1 trillion infrastructure budget that's headed our way. Yeah, it's going to address everything from electric vehicles, electric vehicle charge stations. A lot of that's going to address climate mitigation, especially in the built environment. There's a lot of money coming our way. And right now at Incentify, we house about a minimum $20 billion per year. Half of it goes completely unclaimed just because people don't pop in a 2-minute survey. So lots of money out there meant for everyday construction projects to address, anything from energy efficiency or, these resilience topics such as flood mitigation, fireproofing, hurricane proofing. So yeah, lots of money.
Sending in my survey.
So for those of you that didn't hear, that was a B, right? And yeah, not the bad word, the good word, right?
Billion. Word. Yeah, billions.
Fun fact, for those of you that don't know, wake some of you guys up. If the difference between 1,000,000 seconds and 1,000,000,000 seconds, just to kind of conceptualize it, 1,000,000 seconds is 11.6 days. 1,000,000,000 seconds is 37.6 years. So when we talk about 1,000,000,000 and 100 billion in incentives, it's a lot of cash. So Mr. Dawes, talk to a last question about the future, and then we're gonna wrap up. What is the technology of the future in the real estate industry?
I think everything is getting to the point to where it's intuitive. I think when we look at the current, again, I'm in residential currently, it's a bunch of boxes, you click and tap. I think we're going to evolve to this intelligent user interfaces that actually better understands who we are. It respects our privacy. It doesn't sell our data. But if anything, it uses our data to best serve us. I think when we also look at the future of residential real estate, I think it's going to be more than just transactional. The residential real estate has to be the only industry that sells a product that it doesn't service. I want you guys to think about that for a second. The real estate commission industry is a $90 to $100 billion industry, but home servicing is up to $800 billion. If I sold Alex a house right now, the data says he's going to live in it for 8 to 12 years. I make absolutely no money. I'm fired voluntarily after he successfully and happily buys his house. I think the future of real estate is going to figure out the needs and wants of the entire client. When they are attempting to find the perfect home, the most expensive asset they'll probably buy in their lifetime. And they may do it 2 or 3 times. But it won't stop there, like what's happening right now. This same platform and this one application will also service me before, during, after, before, the entire life cycle. Why do I have to use and search on one app to buy, another app to service, another app to purchase retail, another app to do that? Make my life easy. I don't want to have the discernment. I don't want to go to Google and put in my search and it tells me I have 1 million results because nobody goes past page 1. Right? And then if I do even look at page 1, then I have to read what everybody's writing and saying, and I have to decide who to go with. And then I go to Yelp, and then that's a bunch of opinions. I just want to trust a brand and that it's going to give me the answers that I want. The future of real estate brings everything together in one place. It's a digital marketplace. And that's my answer.
Bobby just gave us the Abraham Lincoln future of real estate. I'm excited about that future.
Bobby, you were excited about that.
Oh man, yeah. Every single second. So, and this question is for Rita, talking about, and we're gonna wrap up to the end here, talking about the role of, we talked about residential that feeds into commercial, the role of commercial real estate. How can that market play in providing more equitable access to economic opportunity?
That's a great question. I think one way is what we talked about earlier in terms of thinking creatively about the kind of activities to invite, right? Not being tied to this person has to be willing to commit to my space for the next 5 years and pass this massive credit check and provide me with all this capital up front. I think we need to start thinking more creatively about the activities that we invite. If you have some local brand or some local service provider or some local nonprofit that just wants to pop up in your space and serve their community, give it a try. I think that, one, and this would be a huge shift for sure, but one place where the commercial real estate market can really set a new tone is by saying, why not instead of why? Because the commercial real estate agents, brokers, property managers I talk to, they get requests for these kind of small incremental opportunities from local hyper local players all the time, and traditionally they have said no. And so I think the future is saying yes, leveraging technology to put bumpers around the risk so that everybody has a good experience, but then saying yes, because the way that you build those like really rich local business connections that impact entire communities and build resilience is by saying yes to each other and giving it a try. And when you're talking about an industry as old and established as commercial real estate, it's not only that they have the voice to be able to do it, it's that they have this massive footprint to be able to power it.
How do we power that? And I'm gonna switch to Alex. How do we power that to help and break down the wall? Right, like we're talking commercial real estate and we're building and breaking down walls. How do we power that to educate people beyond our walls, still in other communities? Because there's going to be other places that are going to serve as work environment. How is this tech innovation going to happen, Alex?
Yeah, first of all, you buy a house for Bobby. That's step number one. Then after that, he teaches you about all the technology that's behind the A to Z process of minimizing that friction that Rita just kind of talked about. And then ultimately you sit happy drinking your wine at home. I think that's the 3-step program that we're going to start pitching now. And honestly, like technology is, I think again, you got to make it convenient for people to access these kind of resources. I have a Latin background, and one of the things that we've kind of navigated is, okay, how do you make something like cryptocurrency, which fundamentally just even being educated, you have a hard time understanding. How do you give the Latin community an understanding of cryptocurrency that potentially has moved to this country and is just now trying to understand just the financial structure? Like, what is a credit score? That's not used in a lot of places, right? And so I think education is at its core of everything that we do in terms of being able to break down those barriers. But that's not just limited to innovation or technology or anything like that. So fundamentally changing how we teach our kids and our students about how to engage new financial communities, and then leveraging technology to make it convenient. I think Robinhood is a good example and a bad example of the gamification of different financial elements. Now they made it too easy, which caused some issues, right? And so understanding that balance is something that we're going to have to work on towards the future.
So along that, and if people go buy their house from Bobby, after that, what other places are going to serve as work environments in this unique education environment, whether it's for different minorities, different demographics? What other places are going to serve as work environments?
That's a good question. I mean, like you start thinking about like, the largest co-working place in the world is Starbucks, right? Because people just like want a place away from home and a piece of coffee and to be around other environments. And then we kind of progress to maybe like true co-working, which is like, okay, curated engagement and collision between fractional shared workers, like those lawyers that Rita described earlier that don't really have offices, to like entrepreneurs. And so then like what then, how do we then educate towards the next platform and what that looks like? I think that ties into like the original question. I don't know. I think that's the exciting piece, right? Is the opportunity to be able to present what we're doing today, understand the challenges, kind of to what Mark was referencing, understand and kind of trying to preempt those gaps in the future. Right. If we want to get granular, one gap that I would say I've noticed is the like true collaboration amongst entrepreneurs. I think there's still a lot of elements of ego and competitiveness. And so understanding how to reduce, now we can get into the human nature and behavioral science of that. And I think that's outside of the scope of this talk. But how do we reduce that ego to be able to build something that's not necessarily a zero-sum game? And I think that's the exciting piece for like the next generation of innovators.
Excellent.
Alex, can I jump in on that potentially?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So you know it's interesting, and I'm a bit of a nerd. Avid reader, writer myself. I write for Forbes, and you know I sit around I'm fortunate to sit around a lot of profound men and women and have some beautiful dialogue. And the truth of the matter is that when we start talking about look what's happening, look what has happened. Unfortunately, society, people, mankind, the evolution of change happens unfortunately with crisis moments. And we've experienced a crisis in the last 18 months, right? And that has like just accelerated change, that accelerated technology. We fell forward. And what's interesting is, and what companies have to do, all of us that are startups right here, is we really have to do a better job of studying people, a variety of people, women, you know, minorities, and it shouldn't have to be crisis moments that evolve society forward. That there should be just this innate desire to want to see this evolution, even if you're selfish enough to just want it for your bottom line, right? To be inclusive, right? And so, but to study people and to want to understand and engage them in regards to what they want and what they need, I think in the cracks and crevices of that is infinite possibilities, and we have to, you know, engage all people and from within have that desire to do that. And I think once we do that successfully, then not only will we find out that we'll be fulfilled, but we will fulfill a lot of people, and we'll realize that there are people that will grab our brand and they will adopt our missions for and with us. And next thing you know, we'll be exactly where we want to be as companies.
Can I add to that?
Absolutely.
I love everything that both of you just said, and I think it is spot on. And what it makes me think about is how, if you look at the true unicorns in the market,
Yes.
they are powered by technology, but they sing because of co-creation. They are people who have been dogged at really, really focusing on the people they're trying to serve, asking really good questions, trying new things. It's a true co-creation model. There's no one author there. And I think that's going to be the way forward in real estate, whether you're talking about the home buying process, the home borrowing process, or the, you know, business space buying or borrowing process. The businesses that are going to wind up thriving post-pandemic are going to be the ones willing to co-create, whether it's landlords figuring out how to co-create with their tenants, or, you know, come into spaces that they might not have thought of as their first choice and figuring out how to just really do amazing things there. The magic is going to be in the co-creation. The question is who's willing to, as Alex mentioned, like put their own ego aside.
Exactly.
Assume the position that they don't have all the answers and start asking really, really good questions.
That is spot on.
And absolutely spot on. And we talked a little bit about how technology is going to change the residential market. Love what you just said, Natalie. And businesses, you know, they're going to have to be flexible and let go of some of their own egos. Sebastian, what do you see? What role does technology play in this new vision and transforming the multifamily hospitality market?
Yeah, so I mean, the traditional apartment leasing experience is you have to call somebody up, arrange a viewing, go to an office, be shown around by somebody, do a lot of paperwork, and just so that then you can then set up your property. And the average one-bedroom apartment needs about 125 items to furnish and equip it so that it's ready for use, not to mention all the utilities and internet setup that we spoke about before. So, I mean, just imagine if you could, you know, book an apartment to live in, just like you did a hotel, go online, give your credit card details, also supply your identity information so that your identity can be verified and you can have the prerequisite background checks done automatically. And then you show up, everything is sort of set up. You know, all you have to do is to put the Wi-Fi password in your computer, It's even possible to do things like in advance to set the temperature that you feel most comfortable with before you arrive. Have somebody come in, clean the apartment and change the linens every week or every 2 weeks according to your schedule, and do all this stuff by phone without actually ever having to speak to a person. And there's a lot of people who would have really enjoyed COVID because it means they don't have to interact with people physically. Millennials hate the phone and hate in-person things, in-person sort of interactions, and obviously introverts hate that too. So why does everything have to be so difficult? That's sort of to me how technology can help, and all of that can be facilitated by technology. And the apartment industry was kind of forced into things like self-guided viewings and things like that because of COVID. And I remember writing a piece about a year ago for the Houston Apartment Association's magazine. And I kind of said, well, it'd be good if some of these things kind of stuck because a lot of people would enjoy a different model. So yeah, technology can make renting an apartment and living in an apartment effortless. As Bobby said earlier on, right? When you rent a place or you buy a place, actually there's a whole bunch more money that's spent every month, and beyond money is actually your time, and that has a tremendous value. Rita knows she charges by the hour, and right. So all that time you spend finding the best utility provider, cleaning the apartment yourself or arranging for somebody else to do it, and so on and so forth. So suddenly we can have all this time free, so that we can do other things, whether it's pursuing our startups and businesses, or just having more leisure time with loved ones. So yeah, I'm really excited about applying technology to make our lives simpler, because the biggest companies these days, that's what they do. Netflix made watching TV a lot easier. You didn't have to buy to a TV station schedule, or worse, go to Blockbusters to pick up the movie you wanted to rent. Amazon meant you didn't have to drive around town to multiple stores to buy what you want. Now it comes to you. And same thing with Uber. And so, at Lodger, that's what we're trying to do for living somewhere. Live anywhere you want for any length of time, like a subscription, but for a place to live where everything's taken care of.
Good stuff.
Sebastian, you're a bad man. I saw what you did there. Charged by the hour. I love the play on word. We're gonna wrap up here. Last question for Mark. Then we're gonna do one last just speed session. What you want to leave the audience with, Mark? How is technology going to change commercial real estate for minorities?
Yeah, so I'm not sure who mentioned blockchain, but it's the other than kind of cryptocurrency, it's the internet, I guess 3.0, and so being able to kind of track and measure where the money's coming from, being able to have capital come from anywhere to be able to fund your project. So maybe it's a Nigerian billionaire, or et cetera, that's kind of funding the diaspora, et cetera, et cetera. So just being able to kind of use technology to break down those like I said, those barriers that have existed, access to capital, crowdfunding, et cetera, et cetera. People are a lot more comfortable. One of the things that the pandemic has done, like Sebastian said, is people are a lot more comfortable doing business over the internet now. And so that's what the future looks like.
Phenomenal. And I want to thank everybody for staying with us during this time. One last stop, we're going to do a speed session. Sebastian, you talked about charging by the hour. What do you want to leave the audience with?
I just want people to realize that there's a different way to rent a place to live, where you don't have to do all the hard work yourself. You can live in a beautiful home. So next time you're speaking to apartment communities, ask them, do you have furnished places? And if they say no, then you say, why not? I know a guy who can help you with that.
Excellent. Alex, you look like Hugh Jackman. Don't let anybody tell you differently, man. What would you like to leave the audience with?
It takes 20 push-ups a day, 100 pull-ups. I'm gonna take Rita's advice and ask a question. And I just want to challenge, I guess, the audience to think about what they want their future environments to look like, whether that's at home or whether that's at work. And you know, you have access to all of us here to be able to kind of really create that for yourself and for others.
Phenomenal. Mr. Bryant, what would you like to leave the audience with?
You know, I want to leave the audience with that when it comes to residential search, that there actually is a better way to search. You know, I remember at a time, and I'm about to age myself, but I do have a few grays on my chin, is that it was this thing called an 8-track. And everybody thought that that was it.
What's that?
But they never ever imagined that one day it would be this thing called Pandora. And we would chunk away this big old cassette tape and that we would stream our music. So what am I saying with that? Is that today it may seem like there are some awesome ways to search, but I want to tell you that all you have to do is ask DOS, because there is a better way to search for real estate. It's more intuitive, and we'll do you better than just showing you pictures, square footage, the closest school. Our objective is to actually give you advice, to give you tips, all at the edge of your voice or the text message of your phone. Ask DOS. Thank you much.
Phenomenal. Rita, what would you like to leave the audience with?
I stand by my ask really good questions comment. No, I think that, you know, there's so much challenge certainly in the last 18 months we've all navigated, and more to come, but also so much opportunity. And the way everyone is going to see the commercial real estate space advance, and quite frankly, the economy reopen, is by thinking really creatively. If I have space, am I fully using it? If I need space, am I building those local relationships to be able to find it? And thinking about it really in terms of like building a symphony together. Or, you know, what does it look like to help each other's businesses sing and serve our communities? And I have to tell you, like, I remember 8 tracks, Bobby, but you know what I remember more? That at the very beginning, Blockbuster had the opportunity to buy Netflix for a song, didn't see the future, didn't buy Netflix, and who's left standing? So
Netflix.
I think, you know, it's understanding the people you're serving, it's asking really good questions, and it's being really creative about what you can do together.
Yes, and what makes it even better, Rita, is Netflix is showing the story of Blockbuster, what makes it even worse.
Mark, what would you like to leave the audience with?
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you. This platform has been set up by the Houston Tech Rodeo. The reason that we're, you know, all 7 of us are sitting here and having this mastermind group essentially about, you know, the future of real estate is because of the Tech Rodeo. But I want us to, you know, continue these conversations. I want us to not just, you know, not just come to an event, a Zoom event, so we can promote our companies, etc. Someone earlier mentioned, you know, egos and, you know, getting out of our own ways and figuring out how we can let the New Yorks and the Silicon Valleys know that, you know, there is technology, there is innovation down here in Silicon Bayou, in Texas. And with regard to the 40-acre plan, just being able to, like I said, look to the past, take something, you know, that was a great idea in the past, and, you know, modernize it, bring it to the future with technology, and just create great communities using real estate and technology. 40acreplan.com, that's 40acreplan.com.
Phenomenal. Thank you for that, Mark. And Miss Natalie, what would you like to leave the audience with? You're the last thing between them and happy hour.
Hey, look, I think it's great to ask, really good questions. It's even better to give a test drive to everyone's platforms that you've heard here. If any of these folks fit a need that you have in commercial real estate, support us, try it out. We have searched out, I can't tell you how many hours, years, the things we have done to keep our ear to the ground to build something that's going to suit your need. Let us show off for you. And I can tell you at Incentifind, it is about more than just coalescing all of these incentives. It's making it digestible to any type of real estate asset, new or existing. Further, it's about making sure that money goes back into your pocket. It rewards you for doing the right things, which are, addressing environmental or sustainability goals. It's also addressing, like I said, resilience. That's a hot topic. If you want to learn more about it, we have those incentives at Incentifind. And it's also just about realizing that there is a community here in Houston. I think we should take this a step further, folks, and look at how we can further build our, commercial real estate, as Mark put it, mastermind community. There's a lot going on here, and we're addressing real problems at a national scale. And I think that's something to be proud of.
Absolutely phenomenal. So first and foremost, I want to say thank you to the Houston Tech Rodeo. I want to say thank you for sponsors like KPMG, and I'm eternally grateful for each and every one of you strong minds for being on here and sharing not only your testimony, but how you can affect and impact the world. And I'll leave people with this. When you're looking at commercial real estate, when you're looking at everything, don't just look at the money, look what the purpose is behind it. What's the impact and what's the mission that you absolutely want to create? And then the people on here will help you find a way to either make money with it, right, in commercial real estate somehow, and create that flexibility and that opportunity that you need in that space. So with that said, everybody have a blessed day. Thank you.